Hello, and welcome to Eramis Soccer, our very special guest with myself and former Preston women's manager Shaun Spencer for today's episode to review the final, Mr. Warren Barton, Newcastle United legend, Wimbledon legend, England international with tournament experience himself. Thanks for joining us, Warren.
Absolute pleasure, my friend. Nice to speak to you both.
So me and Shaun have talked on every episode about England's road here, so people tend to know what we think. You know, we're impressed with how successful the switch to 3-5-2 was. We're impressed with the physical presence of the England team. Russo and Hemp front two seem to be firing. What are your main observations on the team going into this final, Warren?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I thought we grew into the tournament. The Haiti game was a bit of a nerve-wracking. And I think for players going into any tournament, the first game is always one that you just want to get out of the way. And, you know, she made a great save at the end, Mary, just to keep us in the game. But from then, we bounced on. We looked strong. Obviously, was very comfortable in the group stages. And then, as I said, the tournament went on, playing against a Colombian team that I'd watched throughout the tournament, my time working with Fox, seeing how dangerous they was, particularly their front two, if you like. Sometimes they go to a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2. But the Australian game, really, for me, I was like, wow, we got a real chance of winning it, because I thought they handled the occasion. Playing against the host is always difficult. You know, over 76,000 fans cheering, majority of them cheering the Australian players on. But we was ruthless. We was pacey, we was dynamic. And then when we took our opportunities, we took them very, very well. So going into the final, when you play against any Spanish team, you know they're going to have quality and possession on the ball. You know they're going to be tactically switched on in transition, and when you don't have the ball as well defensively, they keep a good shape. But we couldn't get any momentum into the game. You know, every time we push forward with our fullbacks, they seem to exploit the space in behind. Every time we try to press and put them under some pressure, they started again and kept the ball very, very well, and sort of run the game out of our legs a little bit. So we couldn't get any momentum. We couldn't get hold of the ball. We couldn't put them under pressure. And in the end, you know, worthy winners. But that's not to say it wasn't a great tournament for the manager, the staff, and obviously the players. Because going into it, gentlemen, if you remember how many injuries we had, and key injuries, you know, you lose your captain, you lose some important players, starters. You know, a lot of nations lose, you know, players going into a tournament. We know that, but these was, you know, three top players that are going to have an impact in the tournament. So over the course of the tournament, I thought it was a wonderful tournament hosted by New Zealand and Australia. And we just come a little bit short, like we've had on the men's side, but there's a lot of positivity about the women's performance and how they played. Obviously, James is going to learn her lesson, because you think if she'd had a run of a couple of games to go into it, she would have been a starter. And I understand why she didn't start. But, you know, she was flying in this tournament, and arguably was going to be the best newcomer in the tournament if she kept the sort of standards she kept in the games going along. And obviously, you know, the Nigeria game was a big disappointment for her in particular.
Yeah, it was giving you vibes of Paul Gascoigne in Italia 90 after the China game with Lauren James, wasn't it? So I got two questions for you, Laura. Warren, I nearly called you Lauren. Warren James. But I got a question on Lauren James, because England started the tournament in a 4-3-3 and they weren't really firing. And then we moved to 3-5-2 and she was a number 10 against China and she looked like the best player in the world that day. And then she's come on today after Nigeria kind of shut her down in a 10 role, right? And she's come on wide left. So do you believe that Nigerian performance that stifled her as a 10 has had such an impact that not only is she suspended, but they've moved her wide left because she was so easily figured out as a 10? And or am I off base there?
No, I do think her best position is out wide, whether it's on the left or on the right. I think, you know, ideally, with all the personnel that we had, we would be a 4-3-3. But I think like any team, Stu, you've coached, and both of you have coached at a high level. When you can't always be stuck to a formation, particularly in the modern game, how in one half you might play a certain way and then in the second half, and then you may change your personnel. I think she's talented enough to play as a 10, but also I think her best position is out wide. When you get her isolated on one-on-one situations, she can come inside, she can go on the outside, she can play little combinations and get in behind you. So I think she's got an array of talent of being able to do that. I think I can only think, I don't know, is that the way that she played against Nigeria and the sending off really affected her. She's a young player, you know, and I know she's a million miles from home, but she'd still see the headlines of all the reaction that was happening back home, because she's such an important. We've seen what with Paul's career how he was, but I think she's got good people around her. I just think it was a shame what had to put a lot of emphasis on her, where at the beginning she was sort of under the radar. But you know, we'll help her out. I think she's been a good frame of mind in the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully we can build on that. But you're right. I think it was a mixture of a lot of things that was going on in that Nigeria game.
Yeah. And the second question I had for you was on the system, and you played fullback to, you know, world level. And if anyone watched the game and you have access to it and you press pause at 39 minutes and 40 seconds, there is a screenshot of Lucy Bronze pressing the Spanish fullback, probably 70, 80 yards up the field. Very much the vibes of Trent and Andy Robertson at Liverpool. Now, England have done this in the tournament and it's been effective. They've rattled teams. They've got in teams' faces. Bronze and Daly, I believe, have been one of the strengths of England. But is this something that Spain have scouted out, you know, allowed England, baited England almost to press the fullbacks by giving the fullbacks the ball? And then when Bronze and Daly get up the field, get in behind. Because for the entire first half, the combination of the left back, Carmoso, the winger Caldente, the forward Paruello going over there, Spain are just, you know, tearing England up on that left-hand side, the English right. Do you believe that was scouted, rehearsed, and executed, or is that just the flow of the game?
Well, that's what I would have done against if I'm playing against a 3 or a 5 at the back. You want them to, you want the Tyson, and also with Bronze, a lot of the players on the Spanish team would know her from Barcelona. You know, I think there was 6 or 7 in the Spanish team that was her teammate, so they would understand her weakness is that she wants to go forward. She's 31 years of age. She's played 20 games in a World Cup. She's more than able to understand the situation, when to press, when to stay off. And I think it's hard to press when someone's got comfortable on the ball. So when I had played that full-back position or wing-back position, if the left-back, say Graham Lasso, had got the ball, there's no point me running 30 yards to try and close them down because they're comfortable. I think the timing was wrong where she's trying to press in. They played in behind and isolated our centre halves who are going to now be dragged out. That leaves a massive hole for Bright to try and deal with, who's not the most mobile. She wants everything in front of her so she can head and kick it. And now all of a sudden they're running at us. And that's really, I think, where the goal come from, where we was out of position a little bit. We couldn't quite get back in our position. You know, again, looking at it, maybe for, 20 minutes, you go as 4-4-2 and just get, Daly to squeeze up a little, Bronze can cover around and then just slow yourself down in the game. But there's all ifs and buts. It's a World Cup going on. But there's definitely, Stu, that's an area whenever I've played against, 3 at the back fighters, I want the fullback. So, I mean, Tyson Hurt to come into an area, then I'm just going to roll it around the corner. It doesn't even have to be a combined. And then now you're running a, one-on-one situation in the final third. And, Spain has shown throughout that tournament that they're electric in them wide areas and they're going to hurt you. And it's easier running forward than it is running backward. If you're a Spanish player going to help and support, it's easier running forward rather than Bronze having to turn and Daly running 30, 40 yards back again. So, I think we had it again with Gareth with Croatia when they did that. When we had the fullbacks wide areas in the men's World Cup, we got exploited there. We kept coming round and they just kept overloading it on the other side when we played Croatia. So it happens at the highest level, and it's something that we as a nation have to try and work with.
Yeah, I mean, and the goal, it's a moment of madness for me from Bronze, who I really rate highly, but she drives centrally. I mean, it looks like she's going into a 1v4. They turn her over. The holding mid, Abelera, she chips the ball to Caldente, who I thought was fantastic. She's out wide. The left back, who is now getting tracked by Alicia Ruscio, who's, in the mud behind her because bronze has been beaten high. Left back comes in, take a touch, probably got about 6 inches of a window to finish and beat Earps inside the post. And she does. It's a great goal. And it might well be scripted from Spain, right? To turn the ball over, and on the turnover, whichever England fullback or wingback had the ball, that's the first place we look. I've said it twice now, but when I watch Liverpool, the games they struggle, this is what they struggle with. They give the ball away, and if Trent or Andy Robertson's been involved in the play, the ball just goes straight where they came from, and you've either got a centre-back slow, or in this case, we've got a centre-forward trying to track a left-back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, not going back too much, but when we played Barcelona in the Champions League with Louis van Gaal, we knew with his fullbacks, Sergi in particular was a fullback that wanted to push on. So every time we got it, we rolled it around the corner for Keith Gillespie, and Tino ends up getting a hat-trick. And 2 of them are headers from Keith. So, even you go back to the mid-90s when fullbacks was just starting to understand the game about pressing and going up the field. Kenny Dalglish said, as soon as you get it, just roll it around the corner for him, and then Keith will do the rest. And so you go into a game, and they knew exactly how we wanted to press because the conditions was cold, and we'd overrun a lot of teams. But any Spanish team that you play against, whether it's a U15 team or you play against in a World Cup final in the women's game, they're going to be comfortable on the ball, and they're going to be tactically aware just to break you down. And sometimes, Stu, we look at Pep Guardiola and think we marvel about what he does, but all he does is find where the opposition weakness is and just exploits it. He does a lot of good things, obviously, but when he plays against a team that he knows, he'll look at what their weakness is in, add his little dimension to it, and just keep banging the drum, just keep exploiting it. So if it's a team that are spread out and they want to do it, go down the middle. If it's a team that's gone in, it go on the outside. So it's an area as a coach, and that's why I was surprised we didn't change it a little bit. Because we couldn't get hold of the ball. It might be just for 5 minutes, and again, let's just go 4-4-2, narrow it out, or even if you just go 5 at the back, just say you 2 fullbacks, stay where you are. I don't want you going for. Then it gives them something to think about. But we never did that. We kept going. We're going to run you down. We're going to push you. It's a little bit of the English mentality. We're going to keep going. We're going to beat you. And at the highest level, it didn't pay off. Credit to them.
I always think game plan wise, if you can take someone's strength and use it against them, it's a very dangerous thing. And I think Spain have done that here. The one halftime change I personally didn't love, and the reason I didn't love it is I thought England were second best in the first half. I don't think it's up for debate. But I thought the joy England did have was the front pair linking, Hemp and Russo. So when they changed, yes, you get Lauren James into the game and you get Chloe Kelly on the right wing, but by going back to a 4-3-3, I thought England looked more likely to score with Hemp and Russo playing together than they did in the 3 with James wide left. What were your thoughts on the halftime changes?
I think that was a lot of pressure from how James had to start the tournament and think, right, we're throw on. And I think you're judged by, substitutions as a coach. You live and die by them. You throw one in the last minute, they get the winning goal. You're all of a sudden Einstein, the greatest person in the world. But I think a little bit was that of trying to get back in the game with some pace and keeping it a bit wide. But it just the game had sort of gone away from us then. And I think we needed to get back in the game rather than trying to win the game. And I think with them subs, she's tried to win it rather than just getting back in the game. And again, we was exploited a little bit. And as soon as you start second guessing yourself, then the opposition will smell blood and obviously do that. I can see the reason why she did that. I can see the reasons why to bring James on. But you're right. When you look at the combination that was going on, and the 2 centre halves for Spain are I think, and probably their weakest players. They're great with the ball, but I think when you get them on a one-on-one situation, you can exploit them. We didn't keep that momentum going by trying to do that. We kept trying to outplay them, outrun them, outgrind them, and we couldn't get into it. It's as simple as get it into them two and let them two try and cause a bit of havoc. And then once the game starts coming back into your momentum, then you can bring the subs on. But listen, it's the World Cup. It's half time. You think, well, I've only got 45 minutes. I take a throw of the dice. Unfortunately, it backfired a little bit on us.
Yeah, I've got you. The first 15 minutes of the half, I think you see 2 things that are pretty reflective of the game. One is Chloe Kelly's gone there on the right wing, and she's obviously trying to, like you said, win the game, trying to get forward, trying to cross, trying to shoot. And the first thing she does is she's fouling the Spanish left back, Carmona, just to remind her that she's not going to be able to spend the game on the front foot because she's going to have a lot of defensive work to do. I mean, you played for a team under Kevin Keegan that I thought was, if not the original attacking fullback team, definitely one of the early great teams. You know, what psychologically does it do to an opponent when your left back and your right back are proficient attackers?
Well, it gives you added numbers going forward, and that's how Kevin used to say to us, you know, and it was very unusual because at that time, if you see the right back going up, the left back will come round. If you see the left back going forward, the right back, he just said he wanted both to go up there so we could try and press, keep the ball, and then get it out wide to our players. I'll get it into Peter Beasley's feet and then start playing from there. So he wanted us to go at the same time. I think the tackle and the kick is that English mentality. You're on the sideline, you're seeing someone having a field day. I'm going to show you, and that's where we have to be tactically aware sometimes that a bit of brute force is not always going to be the way. And I think it was a reminder to say, like, you know, you're going to have a tough game. You've got to beat your opponent by running past them, take her back, make her defend, make her think about it. As soon as she kicked her and like got in her face, the fullback, the Spanish fullback, if it was me, I think I've got you now because you've kicked me, you're upset. Now I'm going to keep taking you on rather than knocking it past me again. I remember Harry Kill done it for Leeds. I was playing against him. I thought, right, I'm going to show him. I'm going to, you know, put my foot in him. He got it twice and flicked it around the corner. Now I'm running backwards, and I'm now having to give a corner away or a throwing away. And then I had to then stay on my feet for the rest of the game because he would have sucked me in and he might have got another one and I'll get sent off. So I think that's a little bit of our mentality going to back what I said is that we're going to get on the front foot. I'm going to show you you're not going to give it away, but do it the other way. You know, run her back, make her defend because, as I said, me and John was good going forward. Bez was probably better than me defending, but that wasn't always my forte. Although I didn't mind a tackle, I wasn't, you know, positioning. Sometimes I used to say if I was playing against Giggs, like how many times is he going to run back and chase me? The problem with Ryan, he used to actually do it and then run the other way, another 50 miles an hour. So it was difficult doing it with someone against Ryan Giggs.
Yeah. Now, between minutes 55 and 60, we get some stats on the screen from Fox that are quite revealing. 26-10 advantage for Spain in terms of final third entries, 340-201 advantage for Spain in terms of completed passes. There's a little run of play where Spain do a little 4-5 player rondo in their own half, a lot of one-touch passes that ends in with foul within England, foul by Lucy Bronze, and then England's next attack is a ball in behind for Chloe Kelly. So it's just a glaring contrast in styles. Now, both styles can work, right? It's not a case of the team who plays technically for possession always wins. It's not a case of the physically better team wins. And I think it's an important tightrope to walk developmentally because, you know, I've watched a lot of youth tournaments where there's been a focus now on curriculum and teams playing the right way and the same way and developing kids to make the same decisions. And A, I believe that's boring. But B, I don't believe that a player's getting ready for top level football unless you can play against this Spanish team and this English team. You know, can you figure out and thrive against a team that's going to starve you of the ball and, you know, pick it round corners and run by you? And can you survive against an English team that's going to be more in your face? You run a youth club. You know, what are your thoughts on development nowadays? Are we getting too one-sided? Is there a right way and a wrong way when you're bringing players between the ages of 15 to 18, where they go on the bridge of youth to college? What's your emphasis on there with the young players?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. I think there's a balance of both. I think, you know, with Barcelona and Spain, the success they had in their 2000s and, you know, in the last probably decade, we've been sort of brainwashed that that's the right way to play. That's not the only way to play the game. There's lots of different styles. A lot of it is down to your personnel. What can they do? Is there any point of playing out from the back when your goalkeeper can't pass the ball? You know, that type of things. What we try and do in our club is build a technique, the foundations of the game, but also what's the object of the game? The object is to score goals. So you can do your 5-yard passing, but progressive passing to go forward. So it's not always rondos, keeping it, start again. You know, we try and do a passing exercise that you pass, your next one has to go forward. So if it comes back, your next pass has to go forward in an area. So as I said, I think we got into a mindset of across the world of there's only one way to play, and like you just said, it's Stu, the right way to play. There's loads of ways to play the game. I was at Wimbledon that went from back to front very, very quickly and very, very crudely. It wasn't necessary any type of quality. It was just get it forward, and then we're gonna upset the other team. And then I went to a team that was the entertainers that wanted to go forward, but you had to pass it forward with a purpose. Yeah. So from that point of view, you have different methods. I always think the game is the game. You want to try and score goals. You want to get to the opponent's goal as quick as you can. Now, if you can do that in 5 passes, or you can do it in 1 pass, but also with the elite level, and you've all coached at elite level. And I find it strange when I hear coaches say this, oh, we played great football, but we got beat 5-0. Well, the whole point is trying to win the game. You're trying to win a game. That's why it's called a competitive sport. You're trying to win. So, as I said, it's horses for courses. If you've got players that can play, or if you haven't got players, but the fundamentals when you're a young player, Sir Alex Ferguson said it the best thing, and it's on YouTube. He said the ball has to be your friend. And then you had Wenger that come in the late 90s and 2000. Give me an athlete and I'll make you a player. So, you've had 2 aspects of 2 of the greatest coaches that we've had in modern day football have 2 different ideas. Give me an athlete and the other one wants the ball to be his friend. So it's room for, and that's why in America in particular, it's not a set way of doing it. There's so many ways that you can win a game. Whether it's a set pieces, and we see now in the modern game, you get people that are coaches from a set piece coach to come in and win a game from a set piece. So, Stuart, to answer your question, the kids have to be comfortable on the ball. They have to realise the game is competitive, and you have to try and win a game. So, if you can pass it forward, it's there. And as I said, I think we've been brainwashed that if you don't pass it 6 times, you're playing direct soccer. I think that's a load of nonsense. Because when I've coached against teams, all you're doing is kicking it long. I said, no, it's a 30-yard pass, actually. It's not just kicking it long. I played for a team that kicks it long. We're a team that can pass it in behind.
I tell you what I think, where people are shortening kids nowadays is you've got to think of a kid's career. And if you couldn't succeed at Wimbledon, you don't get to play for Newcastle. You don't separate those 2 things. And I'm seeing coaches teach kids to play away, but then also dangerously teach that kid that's the only way to play. So that kid will go to a D1 Power 5 college team and now can't succeed because they're not playing the right way. Or a kid who's successful in college who gets a contract with a NISA or a USL championship team, and he can't succeed because he's conditioned to only play one of the 5 to 10 different ways we can play the sport. So if you're not developing a kid to succeed in all these different challenging environments, and you're not developing them with the intent that they succeed in college or they have a lengthy pro career, well, what are you developing them for?
Yeah, Stuart, it's the same in England with League Two conference. A lot of the Manchester, Liverpool guys going into Morecambe, going into Rochdale, like you can't play like Man City at Rochdale. You can't play like Man City at Morecambe. You're in League Two against 6'3", 6'4" centre backs that are just trying to kick you up in the air. You have to be able to, you have to be pliable and be able to deal and find solutions in that. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. The right way.
All right. So we're going to say goodbye to Warren now. I know you've got things to do and greatly appreciate your time, Warren. And
absolute pleasure, gentlemen.
Myself or Shaun will round this up.
So, Shaun, for this one, you will take that shirt off and start again with another episode, yeah? Is that right?
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
When you've gone.
you got a couple of to everybody out there, you got a couple of smoggies on there, so good luck with that. Good luck with them too. Absolute pleasure.
See you later.
See you later. See you. Take care. Bye-bye.
So that was fun. That was fun. People like Warren, what I appreciate about that is, and for those remaining now who haven't clicked off now, the elite level mind has left the podcast. Shaun and I'll recap the game a little bit, but Warren was a world level fullback. He's marked Louis Figo. He's played in the Champions League. He's played at the top of the game, and the England fullbacks or / wingbacks, whatever you want to call it, they had a pretty important impact on this game, right? Arguably for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting as well. Just going back, in terms of the right way to play, the reason why Spain play the way the way they played, the reason why Guardiola coaches the way he coaches is because that's what they've always done culturally,
and it wins, and it wins.
Yeah, and it wins, but you've just got to respect it, and then you've got to find a way of countering it. I personally don't understand why we didn't take some lessons from Japan. Japan have been the most successful team against Spain in this tournament.
I didn't see that game, so give anyone listening an outline of that game, because I know the stats and they're pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, well, look, what was interesting as well, I was doing some stuff for the US Soccer Federation, an application for that, and I was using Japan for how they were defending. And basically what they were doing is it pretty much looks, like a 4-4-2. They were keeping the lines pretty tight. They were keeping pretty compact, and they were absorbing the pressure. But then when they got the ball, they were able to play out of the pressure, keep calm, and exploit the spaces. Because I think this is one thing, certainly the commentators during the game, if Spain are pressing with 3, 4, 5, 6 players with the player on the ball, that means the spaces elsewhere. And, we were talking about Guardiola. That's exactly what he tries to counterattack. He knows teams are going to try and close his players down, but he also knows there's going to be spaces elsewhere. And that's exactly what Japan did. They didn't leave any spaces at the back. They didn't leave any spaces in the middle, but Spain did, and then they exploited quickly. So I was a little bit stunned that we didn't learn a little bit from that Japan game.
So I think what's interesting, and Japan is a very much I think it's fair to say, I know it's a sweeping statement, right? But I think it's fair to say England and USA, bit more individual ego. Japan, China, bit more of a culture of buying into the team system.
Yeah.
Now, youth college pro level in America, which is my personal experience, if you want to sit in, there's all kinds of negative connotations that come with parking the bus. I won't name him, but I remember having a chat with one of my Dartmouth players when we were watching Man City Burnley, and he's making fun of the Burnley players. And he kind of looked at it different when I explained to him that those Burnley players are earning $30,000 to $50,000 a week, and he's begging for a USL trial. And, you can mock them, and you can pretend that you're on some higher level because you want to attack and you think they don't, or you can realize that within the world that they're playing, this is how they compete, and you have to learn and be able to do that, because to park the bus is not an easy thing. 19 teams are going away to Man City this season. 16 or 17 will tactically try and do what will be described as parking the bus, and probably all 16 or 17 are going to fail, and they're probably all going to get beat. It takes fitness, discipline, ability, like Nigeria did for England. Fantastic ability, and by the way, Nigeria got 20 shots. But is a Japanese team, is it easier as a coach to sell that system to your players, to absorb pressure, to hit them ruthlessly on the counter-attack and score 4 goals in 5 shots, where with an English team, you're going to naturally get more buy-in on the surface level. Let's get up in their face. Let's play front foot. Even though it didn't work, and it didn't work spectacularly, does that play into the decision when the coach is making the game plan?
Yeah, maybe. We both watched the Newcastle game.
Yeah.
Yesterday, and we just spoke about how much Burnley players are on. Now, I don't know the figure off the top of my head, but Newcastle's an expensive team that's been assembled there.
Very.
And they're having to sit back. I wouldn't necessarily say parking the bus, but they're back there in a 4-5-1, a glorified 4-5-1 against Man City. I think it is naive to go into a game thinking you can go toe-to-toe with a team that wants you to do that, and I think that's the case with Spain. You have to acknowledge that, and we said this at the end of yesterday when we were talking about the Australia game, You know, you have to look at Spain and go, okay, they are better at doing this than we are, but we are better at doing this.
Yeah.
But
Now, for me in a tournament, Shaun, with games closer together and less recovery time, I'd be inclined to sit in and in certain areas of the field, probably 30 to 40 yards away from their own goal, just let Spain do as many passes as they want and drop that penetration line. Because for me, as soon as the England wing back and Lucy Bronze is 80 yards from goal, and as soon as it's turned around the corner and they're coming at you and they have 20, 30 yards of room to build up pace, and, you know, Carter and Bright, they're not bad players, but they look like it sometimes here, right? Because instead of defending crosses and defending 1v1s in tight areas, Carter's out on the sideline. She's got people bombing at her. Bright's in 1v1s with quicker players. I just don't think it played to England's strengths.
No, and the other thing that you've got, you know, and again, I'll go back to Bielsa on this one. You know, his rule of if they're playing free up top, you play a back four because your two centre backs can look after the number 9. And if they've got 2 up, you play with a back 3. You know, because then you're a 3v2 in your favour. Now, I was looking at this, and you know, you've got their front 3 on arguably our back 3, so it's man for man there, and then they're overloading out wide and with their attacking midfielders. And not only that, they have good quality possession of the ball to make them passes.
Yeah.
So it's all very, very like dangerous and sort of playing with fire from the start of the game.
I mean, it was beautiful, right? Caldente on the left wing, I thought was phenomenal. Paraleo, I know I'm butchering that name and I apologize.
Doing better than me.
He's over there in that left channel. Hermoso would float over there in pockets. Carmona, the left back, would just fly over. She gets the goal. I think she was the best player on the field. You just have to chalk this down to hindsight's 2020. You know, for all the games, the 3-5-2 did work. And it did work a lot, so I'm not going to go say Serena Wiegman made an error, because I think there's an argument, you know, you don't automatically get to win the World Cup final. That's not how life works. There's an argument the 3-5-2 is the reason England even got there as far as they did, but it's they've been systemically beaten in this game. The Spain players have played a little bit better, and the Spain system and game plan has worked. I mean, there's no mental fragility, England, you know, like, you got Lucy Bronze playing mind games at the penalty in the second half, and Spain have missed the penalty. You've got Bronze aware enough that when Greenwood goes down, we need an extra uniform when she gets the Terry Butcher headband so she doesn't have to come off the field. I think this is a case that fans often don't want to admit. England have give everything they had. There's no weakness. There's no lack of character. They have performed, and they've been beat by a team that was a little bit better. And for whatever reason, most people can't cope with that, right? It has to be a lack of effort. Someone has to have choked. It has to have been a coaching error. Has to have been
referee.
You know, like, I think England gave what they could give, and I think Spain is justifiably the best team in the world.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the only thing for me really is the first half, and I would be interested to know if they looked at Japan, if they took any of the lessons from the Japanese game, because if I'm on the English staff and I'm one of the opposition scouts, like, my dossier is going in with the lessons that I saw in the Japan game.
And Spain lost 4-0 to Japan, for those who didn't know.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, you know, and again, you seem to use his name every 5 minutes, but here we go again. You know, there could be an element of where, like, Bielsa is like, you know, the sports and entertainment. So, yeah, you can sit back and you can defend, and you could go 4-5-1 and try and get them on the counter-attack. Or using his philosophy is, you know, you've got a duty to the fans and to soccer to make it as entertaining as possible. So, you know, there might be an element where she's gone, you know, it's the final. If we're going to get beat, we're going to get beat doing it our way.
So, full disclosure, I do not buy that philosophy. I do not buy into that theory. I think professional coaches at this level have responsibility to their players, to the fan bases who, like it or not, respond to results, to the countries they represent, and to themselves and their careers. I think they should be trying to win. And if you
I'm sorry.
Fantastic.
Just to clarify, like with Bielsa, he is trying to win.
Yeah.
But he's trying to win a certain way. So, for instance, like there's been a few times he's been criticised when they're winning like 3-2 in the last like couple of minutes, but he's still attacking the same way.
Yeah, I would argue, Shaun, and you're not going to like this. I would argue that is a weakness, not a strength. I think Bielsa is a storied character in the history of football. I do. I have a lot of respect for him. I've watched his teams and tried to take lessons from it, some of which I understand and some which I clearly don't. But in terms of the level he's won on, I don't believe he can remember the pantheon of great managers. There's too many people won too much at a higher level than he has for him to be rose above them in the history of the game.
You wanted my comment now, aren't you?
Yeah, I know you're not having it. You're allowed to disagree.
No, elements like, would I do that personally? No. But I do.
Just for the record, if anyone questions it, I'm aware that I rank below Bielsa in terms of what we've won. So not elevating myself above him, but does Bielsa be remembered like Bob Paisley, Bill Shankly, Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, Jose Mourinho, Arrigo Sacchi? No, not in my opinion.
I think it's the balance, isn't it, of being a pioneer and pragmatic. It's finding that sweet spot. So, I love the likes of Mourinho, these people who find a way to win. But on the flip side, I also can't help but admire that type of attitude, that sort of, just running out onto the battlefields first.
Well, I think there's a place for everything. I think probably one of the worst things about the modern day fan is they take what they believe in, and I'm more of a Mourinho guy in terms of what I would try to emulate and how I would go about giving an opportunity to that level. But you don't have to run around deleting all the things you disagree with. You know what I'm saying? Like Bielsa doesn't have to not exist. Football is a better game and the Premier League is a better league if you put Mourinho and Pep and Bielsa and Sean Dyche all in it at the same time. That to me is the beauty of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Flaherty.
And I think what you get then is, you get younger coaches who take elements from these people and try and improve upon and try to get rid of the weaknesses, and that's how the game evolves.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got a friend, Joel Bancroft. He coaches D2 women's in New Hampshire, and he has done a magnificent job at St. Anselm, right? A great job. And the team is immeasurably better on and off the field from the day he took over to now. And an Argentinian who was doing his work in Leeds, in Bielsa, had an influence on that. I mean, that is a beautiful thing. It really is.
No, that's it. So, yeah, I think, looking at this, going back to the game, ultimately you look at it and they got beat, England, so it has to have been the wrong game plan because they got beat. However, could they have scored? Was the chances? Yeah, and then the game's completely different then.
Yeah, so he's written different, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. And the other thing what I've spoke about quite a few times is, tournament soccer is, the variables are insane, and we've seen it with Lauren James. Like the little things that can happen in a tournament can throw off the dynamic of it and completely change, everything about the game.
Yeah. So that's it for the final. We are planning to have a review of the World Cup episode with a coach who made the knockout rounds. So if we pull that off, that'll be very enjoyable. But I can tell you, this is full disclosure. This is the first time I've watched every England game at a women's tournament, and I've really enjoyed it. De Mornay for Haiti, the worries of the Haiti and Denmark game that we talked about on this pod of the counter-attack. I mean, that came through today a little bit, the counter-attack, and it came back to bite us, but I would argue it's more a level of play thing. Denmark, harder, China, Lauren James, memorable performance. Nigeria, magnificent performance, I thought. Did a number on England that might even have played a part in how England went about their decisions today, maybe not. The Australia game, fantastic game. Colombia game, great game. Caicedo, and Spain today, wonderful tournament. Women's soccer very much on the rise. Interest in women's soccer very much on the rise. I think this might be well be remembered as a golden era of women's soccer, at least outside the USA. I know women's soccer's had its moments time and again in the USA, but as an England fan, I've never seen it quite reach this cultural footprint. In Australia and Spain, I think they're probably at a peak in terms of cultural footprint. So good times for the women's game. Any final thoughts, Shaun?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the quality throughout the tournament has been fantastic. You know, we've spoke about the world is speaking about the quality getting diluted in World Cups with more teams getting allowed in the men's game and, you know, the women's game. And I don't think, taking this tournament as an example, I think the quality across the board has been really good. I think the different styles of play has been good, coaching overall, and you know, they're never perfect, but I think the standard of reffing this tournament compared to previous Women's World Cup is light years ahead from where it was. I think the biggest weakness for me in this tournament was the length it took for the VAR decisions. I think that was frustrated and kind of needless in 2023.
Yeah, agreed. VAR, ongoing issues all over the men's and women's game.
Yeah. Like today, though, what was it, 7 minutes?
Yeah, I know. I did like the little touch of the referee announcing to the crowd over the microphone, but overall, I think VAR is another L. One of the weirder things I thought is they let Georgia Stanway place a penalty on the spot, take the steps back for the run-up, and then did the review and cancel the penalty out. Just weird, man. Just weird.
Yeah, and again, very like VAR is not new now, and we're seeing how it's been used in the Premier League, Qatar, and the German league. So I don't understand why this World Cup VAR seems to have gone back.
I prophesize that the future of VAR is going to be the offside law. It's going to be a cyclical and never-ending evolution, off-season changes with ultimately no one ever happy. I hate it, but that's where we're going with VAR.
Yeah, like I said, I agree. I just think it just needs to be quicker. Can't wait 7 minutes for a decision to be made. But you know, other than that, the teams that are involved, the fans, I think it's been quality. I think the stadiums, the location, everything about it. Yeah.
So we'd love to end on a high, but England have lost the World Cup final and VAR is rubbish. Thanks for listening. See you next time.